Hi there, it's Jen and thanks for joining me. Today I'm doing a few cards using the Pinkfresh Studios Let Your Heart Decide collection. The items that I purchased from this collection are the 6x6 paper pad, the ephemera pack, and also the epoxy heart stickers. If the items look familiar, it's because the kit, or not the kit, but the paper and the heart epoxy stickers are actually part of the May 2018 Simon Says stamp card kit, which is where I originally saw this. I thought it was really cute, and so I have been, every once in a while, if I see a collection that Simon Says stamp comes out with in their kit, I will purchase certain items from it. I'm not a subscriber. If you've watched my videos, you know that the only subscription that I currently have is for Spellbinders, because I do have a budget and I cannot purchase all of the card kits that are out there. But I do like to purchase some of the, especially for Simon Says stamp, it's really easy to purchase the items separately and not a part of the kit. So what I try to do is just get a few different items. Like in this, I got the ephemera pack, which is not in the Simon Says stamp kit, and then I try and use my own stamps. So that's what I've done, and they have some really nice paper in this kit. It's very heavy. I don't think I've ever purchased a Pinkfresh Studios any kind of paper from them, and so it is probably about an 80-pound paper. It's really nice and strong. So for this first card, I am taking a Sizzix scallop die, and I'm just going to do a partial die cut. I don't have a strip die that will cut in a half circle shape, and so I have to use some partial die cutting. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for two sides. So it's going to be on the card, it'll be a top and a bottom scalloped piece. So I'm taking this really pretty floral paper and cutting out two pieces, and then I'm taking the pretty red paper with the stripes on it and using that as my centerpiece. And I'll go ahead and adhere the red paper straight to the card. So I'm using two different stamp sets for this, for these cards. They're both Stampindas and they're both sentiment stamp sets, and they're the really pretty scripty font, so I really like them. But I believe I only used two of the sentiments. Actually, I try to use most of the stuff from what I purchased initially. So I'm in the back bedroom and the door is shut, and I can hear my boys out there being as loud as possibly can. They just don't know how to talk any lower, so if that is in the background, I do apologize. Hopefully it's not too much of a distraction, but they make me laugh. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking some black Memento ink, and I'm using the Thanks stamp, and I'm just using my Stamp Perfect tool because I have misplaced my Tim Holtz stamping platform. It's somewhere in my messy craft room. So this was somewhere where I could find it, and so that is what I'm using. I try not to use it because they don't sell it anymore. But if you have another stamping platform, or even if you just have a stamping block, this is a new stamp, and so I wanted to double stamp it, and so that's why I used the platform, because it's a little bit easier to make sure that it's, you know, exactly on there where it should be. So I go ahead and use some black embossing powder and heat set that, and then I'm taking my scalloped edges and pop those up with some foam tape, and I'm adhering that to the top and the bottom. And then in the ephemera pack, there's a bunch of floral pieces, and then there's this hummingbird, and so I adhered a floral piece and the hummingbird, and then I just go over some of the flower centers with this Jewel Drops, Nouveau Jewel Drops, I think it's Rosewater, and then I also use some gold stickles in the center of some of the other flowers, and that will complete this first card. For the next card, I am taking this, it's almost like decorative tape. That's what it looks. That's what it reminds me of. So I just go ahead and cut that down to adhere on the card, and I'm using the sentiment you. Actually, I can't remember, so I'm gonna have to wait until. But the embossing powder I'm using is the Queen's Gold embossing powder, and I'm using my Versamark Dazzle. And so I'm gonna go ahead and spread that on there. So it says, "You are fabulous and you brighten my day." And then I'll go ahead and heat that up. And that is pretty much it for this card. I do take some hearts from a different stamp set and heat emboss those in gold also. But that's pretty much it, really quick. It's always good to have a nice quick card done. And I just love the stamps in the stamp set. So I'm doing this technique, which I have never tried before. I actually saw this on Pinterest, and somebody was using it for scrapbooking. And so basically I'm doing 2 acrylic paints, which I'm doing in white and kind of a teal color, and then I'm taking a distress paint, and I'm putting white in between the colors to give it some definition, because if you don't do that, then the colors are right next to each other. But this is a really cool technique. Originally, I was going to use this as a background, and then I decided to use it for clouds for the card. But I think I'll probably try this again. I actually really liked it. It's kind of cool, the different things you can do. It'd be super easy to make different backgrounds using this. But that is just that's a Martha Stewart tool. You can use a credit card or anything, like probably even a piece of cardboard. But again, I take that piece and I use a cloud die cut, and I cut out some clouds to go with this card. And then I'm taking the heart pattern paper, and I'm just going to cut out pretty much the center. I don't want the whole sheet of paper. So I'm cutting out the hearts with my scissors. And then for the white space in between, I go ahead and take my little Fiskars cutting tool and cut out in between the hearts so that you can see between all of the hearts. And then those are the clouds that I cut out. And then this is the Fiskars tool. You just put it on your finger. It makes it really easy to control and to cut. It's taken me a little bit of practice to use it. I'm getting better at it every time I do use it, but I don't use it that often. So, of course, I dropped the distress oxide ink onto my card base where I wanted to use my blending tool, but it's going to be hidden by the heart. So I'm using this Nuvo blending tool, and this is the, I believe it's Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink. And then I'm just checking for placement, where I'm going to place the hearts. I will go ahead and adhere the clouds up on the top, and then the hearts will be below that. I take some foam tape and put that on the back of each of the hearts so that it will be popped up away from the card. And I think that gives it a really cool effect because you can see the blue peeking through the open space between the hearts. But now I'm taking my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, and I am adhering the clouds to the top. And I do have some left over. I was going to try and incorporate those into another card, but I only made 7 cards for this, and so I didn't come across another idea or a card that I would be able to use those for. So I go ahead and take the hearts and remove the backing for the foam adhesive and go ahead and place that on the card. And I don't think I mentioned, but the idea behind this, taking this pattern paper and cutting it out this way and cutting out so that you can see between each of the hearts, was actually something that I found on Pinterest. And it was actually a scrapbooking layout. There are a lot of really pretty scrapbooking layouts out there that can be used for cards also. So pretty much all the ideas from this card came from Pinterest, from scrapbooking layouts. And there wasn't that much inspiration out there as far as this collection goes for cards. I didn't really see any, and sometimes I don't like looking because I don't want it to affect how I create my own cards. I don't want it to be a duplicate. And this isn't an exact duplicate. Like I said, it was a scrapbooking layout. There wasn't any clouds, and I don't know that there was a background, but I just really liked the idea that she had to take this paper and have this background where you can see through the background. So that completes that card. I also took some white wing Castella and put that on some of the hearts, not all of them, but some of them. And for the next card, I am using the other portion of the paper that I used in the first card. So this is the fade out portion of that pattern paper, which I really wanted to use. And so I go ahead and adhere that with my liquid adhesive. And then I'm also taking the pattern paper that has all the little sentiment squares on it. And originally my idea for this was to cover, you know, just to pop up this sentiment sheet to fit on the panel of the card. And I didn't really like that. And so what I ended up doing was taking the squares and cutting them individually and then popping them up with foam tape and putting them over the seam from where the paper from the pattern paper meets my card base to hide that and cover that up. So I go ahead and take these and put them kind of, you know, zigzaggy across the seam of the card and close enough to each other where you can't see that seam. And I didn't want to put these just across the card, like 2 on the top, 2 in the middle, 2 on the bottom, which there's nothing wrong with that. I just wanted to try something different because I think the last card kit kind of knockoff that I did, I think I had done that, so I didn't want to do that again. So I put those down the middle, and then I do 3 more along the side, and then I take the some of the epoxy stickers and put those on the card also. And I think this one actually ended up being my favorite card. I really love the fade out of the pattern paper from the color just to faded to white. I also take, there are 3 little kind of tabs in the ephemera pack that have words on them, and so I take one of those and put that behind one of the sentiment squares and go ahead and adhere that, and that will complete this card. And for the next card, I go ahead and take this, it's a Hampton Arts stamp set. It's actually a layering stamp set. I'm going to take one of the flowers and just use the regular distress ink. And if you've tried to stamp distress ink, you know it does not stamp very well, which is exactly what I was wanting. I wanted it to be kind of monochromatic, I guess, just a faint blue in the background, so I picked a really light distress ink. This leaf is also in the stamp set, and I don't remember what distress ink I used for this leaf, but I will leave it a listing of all the products I used in the description below. So I go ahead and place all the leaves randomly across the card also, and I do end up taking my water pen and kind of smoothing the color out on the leaves, not on the floral, because you can't, it's kind of really muted, you can't tell, but I do take my water pen and kind of smooth out the leaves a little bit with that ink or with water. And then I'm going to take a bunch of the floral pieces from the ephemera pack, and also there is a sentiment in the ephemera pack that says dream a little dream. So some of them are popped up. So the yellow one is popped up, and then the red floral is adhered directly to the card. And then I'm going to go ahead and pop up this little flower, and I will put the sentiment square in the middle. This card kind of reminds me of like a tropics. I don't know. It's probably the leaves that I added in the background. So go ahead and continue to add the florals around the card. This would have been a good Mother's Day card, I think, also with a different sentiment, of course, but I think it worked well for a Mother's Day card, which I have not. I need to make 2 Mother's Day cards, and I think my goal is to mail them out next week. And so that is something that I want to get started on. I did a haul video on Scrapbook, or for some items purchased from scrapbook.com with some Mother's Day and some Father's Day paper, and some stamps, and so I'm really looking forward to creating some cards using those items because I've just been sitting in my craft room not doing anything. So I didn't realize at the time when I put the sleeve down that it covered up the D and the dreams, and so I adhered it, and then I realized that the D was covered, and so I kind of just pushed it over a little bit. And then I'm using some stickles in different areas of the card. Some green stickles and then some white stickles for the centers, and that will complete that card. I think that one turned out really pretty. I'm actually really happy with how that turned out. And then for this next card, I wanted the stripes. Originally I was going to use the ampersand. Also, I didn't end up using it. I wasn't quite sure what to do with this, to be honest. And so I saw quite a few things on Pinterest for scrapbook layouts, and I didn't really see anything that I liked enough to do a card with, and so I just kind of experimented a little bit with this card. So here I am. I'm just taking I just have a piece of cardboard because I have a mat somewhere, but did I mention that my craft room is really messy? Okay, well, I think I did. So I don't know where that is. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know where that is, so I used a cardboard box. And it works totally fine. So I go ahead and adhere the triangle piece to the top corner. And then here I take a few pieces of the ephemera pack, a few pieces from the ephemera pack. And I really liked that a black stripe, and so I go ahead and I take a sentiment and adhere that, because I think that says this is the right chapter or something like that. Like I said, this kind of geared, the ephemera is a little bit, I think, a little bit more geared towards a scrapbook layout rather than a card layout. And so I just took the sentiment that I wanted to use from the ephemera pack and adhered that. And then my camera turned off, and so what I have done is I've taken another piece of the pattern paper and cut out with the circle, I think it's a circle wonky die or something like that, and then I've taken a brad and put that in the center. The sentiment strip says memories, and I can't read the other part, but on the little pictures it has a bunch of different like words like love, capture, and so I wanted it to be kind of like a spinner, I guess you could say. I don't know what I'm trying to say. And so that's why I put the brad in, so that that sentiment will spin around that says memories. So for the bottom of the card, I took a strip of the pattern paper that has all the books on it, and then I took another piece from the ephemera pack and adhered that, and then I popped the circle up with some foam tape, and as you can see, that moves around. And then I took some of the paper hearts and also some of the epoxy hearts to finish the card off. And this is one of the cards that I wasn't really sure. I kind of had an idea where I wanted to go with it, and then there's usually like 1 or 2 cards in everything that I do where, you know, I have an idea, or I think I have an idea, and then I get started with it and it just goes in a totally different direction, and that is one of these cards right here. But I like how it turned out. So the last card that I do is going to be using not a whole lot from the collection. So I'm going to use these 3 distress inks, and I'm going to do some ink smushing, or ink dragging is more like it. And this, it turns out really a lot lighter than what I was expecting, but I just went ahead and left it. I went over this twice actually. I smushed it the first time, and then I did dried it with my heat gun, and then I went over to give it a little more, to get the color a little bit darker than what it actually is right here, because right here you can't really see any of the color. And then I am taking the Hello stamp from the Stampinda stamp set, and first I'm taking it and going over it with my black Memento ink. And I don't know if it's because it's a new stamp, or maybe my ink pad needs to be re-inked, but it came out really light, the black did, which it's fine with me. I could have gone over it with a black marker to darken it up. But I kind of wanted to give it like a little bit of a shadow, or like a double, I guess. And so I used the Distress Oxide that I used earlier and just kind of offset that to the right a little bit to kind of make it look like it has a little bit of dimension. Broken China. Why did I say Salty Ocean? I think earlier I said this was Salty Ocean, but it's not. I don't even know if Salty Ocean is out in Distress Oxide yet. So this is Broken China. So I'm going to take my embossing folder that has all these little circles or little bubbles and run that through my Big Shot so that the background will have a little bit of texture. And then I go ahead and take one of my square dies and cut that out so that it is a little bit smaller. And then I use this piece of pattern paper. It's a little like a medium blue, I guess, for the background. And I go ahead and pop up my panel with some foam tape. And then I'm going to use some more of the floral pieces from the ephemera pack. And here I'm just trying to figure out placement and what I want to do, because I was running out of florals. So again, like in the other card, some of the items I pop up and some of them are flat against the card. And I'm just going to use my liquid adhesive to adhere these. And they actually adhere fairly well. You know, the background is a little bit bumpy, but they do stay adhered. And so for this, I'm trying to get the colors to be similar. And so the red, it's all kind of a blue card. The red was throwing me off a little bit. And so I just took the flowers. I stole the flowers from the vase and used those on my card. And then I used the blue flower. I tried using some other flowers. I think actually I do use that red flower, the big red flower. Yes, I do. So I go ahead and pop that up with a piece of foam tape. And then I end up taking the long stemmed flower and putting that in the center. And then I take some silver thread and I wrap that around my fingers to make some loops. And then I take a piece of a glue dot, and what I do is wrap the glue dot around the thread so that it's all adhered in one spot and it doesn't come loose. and then that also will adhere it to the card, and so I just place that behind the red flower. And then I take several of the epoxy hearts and place those on the cards. So I ended up having about half a sheet of epoxy hearts left and a ton of ephemera. And of course I bought the entire paper pad, so I had a lot of that left also. And then I take my clear wing Castella and go over the sentiment, and I also go over the red flower. And I also put some stickles in the center of the red flower, and that will finish off this card, and that will finish off the cards that I created with this collection. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked this video or found it informative, please give me a thumbs up, and if you would like to subscribe to my channel and be informed of when videos are posted, please go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And thanks once again for joining me. I'll catch you next time.